مجمع الأندلس التعليمي، تعلم عصري ملهم بهوية وطنية وقيم إسلامية.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, students of grade 10. Mr. Aymen is back. A new grammar lesson, the same unit, unit 8, green living. Keep in mind to do your best to protect the land where we live and the peaceful land that we all love, Qatar, and try to save water. And to the objectives. We aim to answer 3 CR questions after reading the example about the passive voice. We want to complete the rule about the formation of the passive voice, and by the end we aim to put 7 verbs in the correct form. Before that, let's follow this video about the passive voice.
Let's talk about active voice and passive voice. Look at this sentence. The teacher teaches the students. In this sentence, the teacher is the subject because the teacher performs the action.
الفعل.
The action in this sentence is teaches.
الفعل.
The students are the object because the
المفعول به.
students receive the action. In English, we have subject and object pronouns. For example, I is a subject pronoun, while me is an object pronoun. He is a subject pronoun, and him is an object pronoun. She is a subject, and her is an object, and so on. In active sentences, subject pronouns can take the place of the subject, and object pronouns can take the place of the object. The teacher teaches the students is an active sentence because the subject comes before the verb and the object. To change this to passive, we would put the object first, plus a form of to be, plus the past participle of the verb, plus by, plus the subject. The subject is optional in passive voice. Okay, let's change the sentence to passive voice. This sentence is in the present tense. The object comes first, the students, then the form of to be, which, in this case, is the word are. Then the past participle of teach, which is taught, then by, and last, the subject. The students are taught by the teacher. Now let's try a sentence in the past tense. The teacher taught the students. To write this in passive voice, we would say, the students were taught by the teacher. Notice the only thing that changes is the form of to be. And now let's try the future tense. The teacher will teach the students. In passive voice, this sentence is, the students will be taught by the teacher. And now the present continuous tense. The teacher is teaching the students. In passive voice, this sentence is, the students are being taught by the teacher. And now the present perfect tense. The teacher has taught the students. In passive voice, we say, the students have been taught by the teacher. And a modal verb, the teacher should teach the students. In passive voice, we say, the students should be taught by the teacher. We can use passive voice in every tense. Sometimes a sentence can have more than one object. For example, the boy gave flowers to the girl. In this sentence, flowers are the direct object, and the girl is the indirect object. We can write this sentence in passive voice in 2 ways. The first way, the girl was given flowers. The second way, flowers were given to the girl. Remember, if you use the indirect object first, we must include the preposition 2. There are 3 main reasons to use passive voice. The first reason is if the subject is unknown. For example, his wallet was stolen. Notice we use was, the past form of to be, and stolen, the past participle of steal. Who stole his wallet? We don't know. That's why we use passive voice. The second reason we use passive voice is to emphasize the object. For example, Peter was not chosen for the football team. Here, the subject is the coach, but the coach is not important. Peter is important. The third reason we use passive voice is when the subject is obvious from the context. For example, the baby was born yesterday. Did you know that born is the past participle of bear? Here the subject is mom, but this is obvious, so we don't need to say it.
Here we are at the end of this introductive video. And I think we have discovered plenty of rules. Before carrying with learning more rules, or before seeing again these rules, let's try to remember some vocabularies which we may use during the unit. Ancient, recreation, and volunteer. Before continuing with the activities in page 100, I think we have to have a look on the grammar reference in page 141 and 142, which will give you all the rules or the most important rules governing the use of the passive voice. Let's start. We use the passive voice to emphasize the action rather than who or what is responsible for it. The formation or how to get it. The passive voice is formed with the verb to be or the appropriate form of the verb to be and the past participle of the verb of the sentence. The person who causes or carries out the action is called the agent, which is the English equivalent of the Arabic al-fi'al, and is preceded by the preposition by when we write or when we put or when we convert the sentence into the passive voice. Have a look on these examples. These trees were planted by school children from Beijing. We usually omit the agent when the action interests us more than the agent, when we don't know who the agent is, or when it is easy to figure out who the agent is. It's not the same in Arabic. We have only 1 or 2 exceptions in the Holy Quran. We don't precise the agent, we don't include or mention the agent in passive voice, even if it is known. القائم بالفعل لا يذكر في العربية أو الفاعل. Here is the rule governing the formation of the passive voice. In the active voice we have a subject, which is the agent, الفاعل, the verb, which is الفاعل, and the object, which is المفعول به. Note that the verb, of course, has a tense. Here it is the past simple, الماضي البسيط. The object goes to subject position. المفعول به يأخذ مكان المبتدأ, the house. The past tense, the tense of the verb, which is the past simple, is given to the auxiliary to be. زمن الفعل في المبني للمعلوم يصير زمن الفعل to be, الفعل المساعد to be, in the passive voice. The house was. And painted here is at the same time the past simple and the past participle, what you call تصريف ثالث. So the house was painted. By that is optional. Let's have a look on this table to know how the passive voice is formed when the tense of the verb changes. We have the present simple, the past simple, the present perfect simple, the past perfect simple, future will, and modal verbs. So, I'm chosen, so means that someone chooses me. I'm chosen. Or in questions, are you chosen? They aren't chosen. Pay attention to the tense of the auxiliary to be am, are, and aren't. In the past simple, I was chosen, were you chosen, and they weren't chosen. In the present perfect simple, I have been chosen, have you been chosen, and they haven't been chosen. The past perfect, I'd been chosen means I had been chosen, had you been chosen, they hadn't been chosen. Future, I'll be chosen means I will be chosen, will you be chosen, and they won't be chosen. I may be chosen when we use the modal may in this example, or should you be chosen, or they mustn't be chosen. Of course, if you want to know more about the irregular verbs, you have a full list in page 145. And now, I want to ask you a high-thinking question. Forget about the form and forget about the answers you got or the information you got during this video. Think why people choose the passive voice. I will wait your smart answers. And now back to your student's book, page 100. Let's start with this table before completing the rule. So here we have some examples in which we have the active voice and the passive voice. So if the passive voice is trees are planted, the active is they plant trees. Look here to the object trees take subject position. The verb plant is in the present simple, so we need ab here because it's plural. And of course, the past participle of the verb plant. So trees are planted. In the past simple, they planted the trees. So trees were, which is the past simple of the auxiliary to be, trees were planted. They have planted the trees. Here the verb is in the present perfect, so we need the auxiliary to be in the present perfect after the new subject, which was the object trees have been planted. The past perfect simple. Let's take the example. They had planted the trees. The verb is in the past perfect. The auxiliary to be will be put in the past perfect, so trees had been. The past perfect of the verb to be or of the auxiliary to be is had been, and the past participle is planted. So trees had been planted. In the future simple, the example is they will plant trees. So will plant trees. We want to conjugate the auxiliary to be in the future with will, so trees will be, and the past participle again planted. With any of the modals, the sentence will appear in the active voice as they may plant trees, and trees, the object, will go again to the subject position. The modal will be associated with the verb to be, so it will be maybe or can be, and the past participle at the end. So trees may be planted. So how to get the passive voice So, the passive voice is formed with the verb to be in the appropriate form. It's the auxiliary to be in the appropriate form and the past participle of the verb in the sentence. Excellent. So as we've learned the rules governing the formation of the passive voice, I think we can go now to task D. Pause the video and try to complete yourself the task. So let's try to do it. After the success of last year's Planted Tree Day, a bigger event, the verb organize, by the local Department of Parks and Recreation this year. So, by here means that here we need the passive voice of the verb organize. But which tense? We are talking about a recent event. So we can choose the present perfect or also possibly the past simple if you want, but better to use the present perfect. So what shall we say? A bigger event has been organized as suggested in your book. Last year, this is a reference to the past time and this obliges us to use the past simple, but still it is passive. So 5,000 trees were planted in parks all around the city. This year we want to try and reach 10,000. This, and it is the verb achieve. This can be, will be, or may be achieved if we all help. So far that aim all the local schools and universities have been asked to get involved. All equipment and the verb provide will be provided by the Department of Parks and Recreation, and volunteers of any age can join in the fun. Last year, it's a past reference. Last year, volunteers, the verb ask, is also in the passive. We are asked to bring picnic lunches, but this year a barbecue will be organized. It will be a wonderful event. Thank you for your attention. Let's finish with this game. Or let me ask you the following question. Put the verbs in brackets in the correct form. Light bulb, the verb invent in 1879 by Thomas Edison. Yes, was invented, excellent. And English, we want the verb use, the passive voice of the verb use with always, is always used. In class, excellent for your attention. Thank you very much and see you so soon.
مجمع الأندلس التعليمي، تعلم عصري ملهم بهوية وطنية وقيم إسلامية.